So hello everyone in the UK. Hello Umbraco Together. We are very happy to join you remotely. We can't be with you in person because not because of Corona, but because of Brexit this time. But let's leave these unpleasantries for now. And here, live for you from Odense, from HQ, is Niels Lyngsø.
Hello.
And my remote is gone, sorry. And now it's back. So Niels Lyngsø, Umbraco's UX UI engineer, editor, ambassador, and an awesome colleague.
Thank you. And here we have Julia. She's a developer on the UI Library project that we'll get to in a minute, and a front-end developer of Umbraco. You have been here almost for a year.
Yes, a year and without 1 month.
Staying even further.
Yes,
so that's great. So today we are here to present this talk to you, Swift Development with UI Library. And in this talk, we'll give a sneak peek into the future. We'll show you how our future will enable fast and shift construction of user interfaces in Umbraco. So to do that, we'll tell a fictional story about a girl called Emma. And Emma is a developer in an agency, just like most of us have been.
Yes.
And she's working on a project.
She's working on a pet adoption charity website. And what is specific about this website is that it will host many different types of content. And this content can be related to each other. These items are related to each other, and they want to reflect that in the web page. And it can quickly become hard to keep it up to date, especially when we add new stuff to it. So we need some setup that won't require us to revisit existing content and tweak these relationships to keep them up to date.
So this is where Emma, as the developer on the project, comes into play. She will make sure that all the content and the medias can be tagged. And then we'll use those tags to create relations, between them. So luckily today she can use the tags property editor in Umbraco, and those tags are stored globally and thereby shared across any type of content. So in this way, we can easily define relationships on the content and query this later on. And when she has a place where she wants to show this content, she could even also use this same property editor. But this property is not is not the most optimal editor experience for picking and maintaining tags. So instead, Emma will be creating a solution where the client can directly verify if they picked a good combination. Where the existing one you see, you just put in the tags, but you have no idea about the result of it. So we want to improve on that.
So to make it happen, she's going to develop a custom property editor. And this property editor can take one or more tags. And then it's going to display all the content that is marked with these chosen tags. So if she would have to do it today, that would be quite a lot of front-end code to write, but this is soon going to change. And this is because she will have Umbraco UI Library at hand. So in a little bit, we will show you how she builds this property editor. But first, let's zoom out a bit and let's see the big picture of what UI Library is.
Yes, and the UI Library is one of the first steps for us to bring back office up to date in terms of front-end technology. So the UI Library is a project, and this project is going to provide all the pieces needed to build Umbraco UI. It's an open source project of pure client-side code, and this library will then obtain the UI and keep it separated from any business logic. So in this way, we have also ensured that each UI component will only act as a visual building block and will never be tied tightly together with the back office. Each of these components are then carefully designed to solve a desired set of use cases. And as a result of collecting all these UI components in the same project, we are also able to ensure visual consistency way better than we have done before. But we are also able to ensure consistency in the way we implement these components. So we'll see a much easier way of implementing different components. So each component is going to be a package on its own, and it can be used by anyone. And this is especially possible because we're using native browser technology for these, and that, in other words, makes them framework agnostic. Additionally, their styles are also being encapsulated and embedded into each of these components. So the components of the application will not flow into, the style of the application will not flow into the components, neither will the component styling flow out. And this means you don't need to do anything specifically for your application. These components will work as on their own, basically. Yeah, so that actually means that these components can be used in any project.
And all of this is possible because the UI library is based on web components standard, and web components allow us to create custom reusable elements that can be used just like we use the native one. So all you need to do with UI library element is just to take the tag and put it into your markup. The UI library elements, they always start with UUI prefix, so we don't get any name conflicts with any other custom elements or the native elements. So each of these components, they are self-contained, encapsulating both logic and styles. And thanks to web components, thanks to the use of web components, we can have this encapsulation without using any JavaScript framework that usually provides that.
Yeah, we don't need anything.
We don't need anything. We just,
so great.
We are based on native browser technology and standards. So each component is delivered as a separate package, and that way we can test them separately before they are actually used in any project. And this is cool. And thanks to that encapsulation of logic, we are also able to make them accessible and to ensure they are accessible and also test them for accessibility.
Okay, so let's get back to Emma. So now we want Emma to build her property editor by using the UI library. And before, she has cheated a little bit because she already set up a basic property editor. And just so you know what's going on, it's just an H1 tag, nothing fancy here. So now she needs to go to the UI library storybook to figure out what components from this she can be using. And so let's have a look at this UI library. It's a special application that we can use to explore components of the library. And this is called Storybook. It's not something we did, it's a common thing. And this is what it looks like. And over here in the side panel to the left, we can see all the components of the library. And there's stories underneath each component. And each of these stories shows a different use case of a component. So in this way, we can easily navigate around, find components, and try to see how they look or behave. Up here in the top, there's also another tab called Docs. And in this one, we'll get an overview of a component's attributes and properties. That's sort of the API of a component. And we can also see which events it eventually will fire. So this page sort of works as the documentation of a component.
Yeah. And this is auto-generated from the code base. So it will always be up to date. That's a cool thing.
That's very nice, especially because we hope to get contributions. So these properties can then be used to change the component state, and we can try it out in real time in this Storybook application. And that gives us a good way to try out if a component can solve the need that you need. So Julia.
So what Emma needs is a tag component. So let's look it up. Here it is. It says hello, and it doesn't really do much. And here we can see it in different sizes and looks. And if we switch to the docs type, we can see the API, we can see the properties, there's size and the look. There is also a slot there. It's a special extension point that allows us to put our own markup in between components tags. So let's check out, oh yeah, there's a story here. That's what Emma's gonna use. It's a tag with a button. So let's see how the story code looks like. Here's a tag. And you can see that we can use it just like any other HTML element. And the slot inside allows us to render the word hello. So now let's copy the tag that has a button inside. We're going to use it later on in our property editor. So let's jump back here and let's paste the tag inside our property editor. It's going to say, hello, Umbraco Together. You should use your imagination. It's not Code Garden, it's Umbraco Together. Let's refresh the back office and 3, 2, 1. There it is. Hello, Umbraco Together. That's what it says.
So let's take the piece that we copied just before, where we had a button within the tag, because Emma will be needing this because she wants to have tags that you can also remove. And we just pasted that and it works out of the box.
Yeah, we don't have to style it. We
haven't included any style sheets or any JavaScript to make this work in back office. It's just the element. So if we just go back and have a look at what we just pasted, it's actually 3 elements and not just 1. And this is a case that shows that we don't make UI components that try to do everything. We have components for a certain need. And then we try to make those components open for extensions. So in this manner, it's possible for us to build more complex components than what fits a particular, the original
use case.
Yeah. So we can adjust it to fit a particular case. That's what I wanted to say. So in this example, the tag component doesn't know anything about the ability to put a button into it, but we can do so because we have this open architecture. And we what also is happening in this code that we just pasted is that we put in an attribute called look equal primary, and that's just native attributes, just like you know from any other HTML elements. We put it to primary, which gives us a blue color look. And then again, I think I want to highlight that what we're doing here, we're doing in an Angular.js context. We haven't included any frameworks or anything. We of course are loading a bundle from the UI library, but that's it. There's nothing, no other connections. And because the UI library are based on native features, this just works. So yeah, Julia, continue.
So now Emma can display the tags, but we should also be able to type in some more tags. So let's do this now. And we're gonna need a drop-down component that we're gonna take from the UI library and the native input, which we're going to use to search among our tags, to search for our tags. So let's find the drop-down component in the storybook. It has a search field, it's great. So here we can see that it has a default slot and a drop-down slot. So there is also an open property on it that we're going to use to open and close the drop-down. No surprises here. So let's see how the code looks like. Here is our button that's going to render in the default slot, the one that is always visible. And here's another button that's going to render in a slot called dropdown. You can notice the attribute slot equal to dropdown. That's how we can specify to which slot child elements should go to and where they should be displayed.
Yeah, so let's try to incorporate this dropdown into our property editor. And also let's try to wire these things together with some AngularJS code. So here we are putting in the UUI dropdown, and inside of it, we don't want a button in this case. We just want a native input, which you then can start typing in, and then we want tag options to come underneath it. We'll try this. Just a native input type text, and we'll put some placeholder text, and we don't need to put a slot attribute because this will go in the default slot.
Yes.
So we want the dropdown to open when the text field has focus, and we can do that in AngularJS by writing ng-focus, and then we'll put a variable in AngularJS to open dropdown equal true, and for that to work, we also need a controller, and we'll put this dropdown open property into the open attribute of the UUI dropdown. And in this way, we are suddenly communicating from AngularJS into our web component.
So the properties are bound to attributes in our web components. So whatever, they are also reactive. So if you change the attribute, then the component will update itself. It's actually the component updating itself, not the Angular updating the component.
Exactly. But sadly, we can't just write open equal in AngularJS because then it's not part of the AngularJS world. So in AngularJS, we're doing a little bit different. We're writing ng attribute or attr dash and then open. That's everything after the last dash is the name of the native attribute.
Otherwise, Angular won't digest it.
Yeah. So the dropdown component we have from the UI library also emits a custom DOM event called close, and we want to listen to that. And again, in AngularJS world, we can write ng on dash and then the name of a native event we want to listen to in AngularJS world. So anyway, so if the dropdown closes, we are ensuring that our dropdown open variable gets set to false. Nothing fancy. Let's add in a green box in the dropdown slot of the dropdown, and let's see how it looks, just so we get a clear understanding of where we are. So we have an input. If we click it, we see the dropdown. If we unfocus, then the dropdown closes or emits the close event, and things are good. So next, we want to just wrap this up visually so it looks a bit nicer, just for styling purposes. So we just wrap the div around it with a border. So, oh, sorry.
No, let's change the green box.
I skipped something here. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Let's
we don't need the green box.
Let's go ahead and remove this green box, and then let's try to incorporate real tags as options coming inside of the dropdown. We can use a component from the UI library called UUI select option. We'll just put in 3 of those just to see how that looks. Cool. So that looks pretty good. So now we just need to hook this up with some real data so we can start having a property editor that actually works. So let's just run quickly through how Emma will tie this together. And we're just doing this so you don't feel like anything magic is happening behind the scenes, but I will skip over it relatively fast. So we need an array of tags that has been chosen. We need an array of options that are available in our dropdown. We need 2 functions, one for adding a tag and one for removing a tag. And then we also need 1 function to filter as the user types to the input field. And we'll hook this up to our template. Again, we'll use a famous Angular directive called ng-repeat. For each tag that we have picked, we want to show the UUI tag. We want to make sure that we put the right name. And again, for the input to enable filtering, we are wiring up some more stuff. We're removing the fake options, and we are putting an ng-repeat on 1 UUI select option, making it loop through the options and put out the right option name. And when the native select event gets fired from a UUI select option, then we're going to add the tag. So, okay, let's see what's happening here. Okay, cool. You can type. It's filtering. When you click enter, it's going to pick the top one you can also click manually down the list.
Which is great,
yeah.
but
so I think it works as you would expect.
This is not all because we also have to display the content that is tagged by these tags. So let's go to the UI library and find something that can help us do it. So we have a card component in the UI library. It comes in two types, the content type and the media type. So that's what Emma's going to use to build this property editor. Except the content card, she also needs a media card to display lovely pictures of dogs you can adopt. So let's put the content card and see how it works. It says Umbraco Together. So this is how it looks in the back office for now. It's fine. And we're going to wrap this card in another component that serves us as a layout. It's called card grid, and it's going to display all the cards nicely. Let's add another card for the media. And this is how it looks. So yeah, let's connect this to Angular.
Let's try to see
let's
we
see.
Can connect some more. And again, we'll use an ng repeat to loop over the results that we have gotten from the tags that we have chosen. And depending on the result type, we will, if the type is content, then we'll show the content node card. And if the type is media, we'll show the media card. Relatively simple. But we'll also, of course, bind all these attributes. It's minor details. I think it's important to say that as you actually pick tags, we're using a magic content service that doesn't really exist, but this is sort of making things happen now. As a developer, I guess you can imagine how you have to develop some endpoint that will give you things based on tags. But let's see how that looks in real life. So let's put in some tags, and we see how the results are being filtered as we put more tags into it. And we even added the ability to open the results in the infinite editing service, which is just handy for the content editors. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about what happened here. I think in relatively short time, we made a property editor that looks and feels like Umbraco, and we didn't even write any styles. Well, we did write a little bit, so just so you don't feel cheated, we have this style sheet as well, but it's just to sort the border and so on.
15 lines.
Yeah, exactly. It's not much. So thanks to the UI components taking care of displaying our data, we have a much simpler property editor code, and it's much easier for us to maintain this for the future. So there's a clear line between what the UI component itself sort of handles and what you need to handle, which is what your property editor does. Yeah, and now you could maybe easily think that we are done with this property editor, but
no, we are not done, because Emma's client needs one more thing. They always need one more thing, and we always provide that one more thing. So they would like a card to display a product from a shop. So luckily for our Emma developer, we can extend the elements from a UI library, and that's what we're gonna do now. So let's see what we need on this product card. So obviously we should have a product name, and we should have a product price, and it also would be nice to know how the product actually looks like. So let's try to develop something like that. We're gonna create a new file, and in that file we're gonna define our class called product card element, and that class will extend the UUI card element class that we're gonna import from UI library package. So under the hood, UUI card element uses a small library called lit that we use to build web components. It makes it a little bit easier and faster than it would be with
completely native code.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bit.
So let's see how we can equip this class with some properties. We're gonna need two of them, obviously the name and the price. And here you can see we defined these two properties with add property decorator. This is something that Lit provides us.
That would have been way more code if we had to keep it vanilla.
Yes.
But basically it's doing what vanilla code would do.
So it's very friendly way to define these properties. They are reactive. So whenever we change name or the price, the component will update itself, will update its view. So we need some place to put the markup in, and that's going to be the render function. And here we're going to write our template. So let's put two span elements there to display our name and the price. This is something called template literal, and we can put expressions to it with dollar and the curly braces. So now we obviously need some more elements to make it look pretty, because two spans, that's not very impressive. But there now we have some more things here, and let's see. We also need a slot to display the product image. That's what we're going to use it. Without this element, it wouldn't be possible to render anything we put between the component tags.
Yeah.
So we are using a lot of IDs to style this component, which may seem like a heresy, but it's actually not a heresy because of the encapsulation, and because of that, the IDs are also scoped to the component itself. So outside the component, no one really knows what name container is. Yeah. So just to make it a little bit more performant, we can use IDs instead of classes to style that. So now let's paste some styles inside. We're not going to focus on that for a long time. That's just going to make it beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's all we have to do to extend.
That was the coding. So so now this component is ready, and let's try to put it in to our property editor, or Emma's property editor. And the way she'll do that is completely the same as what we've done with the other cards. This time it's just the element name that we came up with, product card, and we will only show that if the result type was of product. We'll add the name and the price as attributes. Those automatically bound or gets binded to the property. So it's an easy way for us to hook things up. And we'll put an image element inside, which is completely similar to what we did with the media card. And let's try to see it in action then. So here we see our custom element building on top of the UUI library's base component for cards. So actually you see there's a shadow around the product card similar to the other ones, and other functionality of the card is also similar on our. Now it's not relevant for this case, but it's also possible to select the cards if that's enabled, or disable them, or highlight if there's an error in the card, etc. etc.
So any functionality that UUI element has, the extension will keep.
Exactly.
We build on top of that.
Exactly. So we extended the UI library. So what we've seen now is that we can combine and use UI components from the library for our needs. And I think we got a pretty good idea about how the components work independently. Whoops. What is going on?
No, we just got a little bit.
Okay, I think it's good.
Back
okay, yeah, but we've also seen how the implementation of these only requires a minimal set of data for them to be integrated or implemented. And we have, and therefore I think we have succeeded with this build within a relatively short time. And now I think we can go to the next slide. That's not it. Okay, that's not it. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, there's a bit of mess going forward back here. But if we put ourselves into Emma, the developer's mindset, I think she'll also be happy to know that the UI components themselves are being tested separately as part of them living in the UI library. And instead of focusing on developing those or testing those, even the accessibility part of it as well, she can now focus on business logic and the composition of the UI.
So you may ask, when can you use it? And the good news is that you can use it now. It's out there. It's published on NPM. It's not yet in the back office, but it's going to get there soon. For now, you can install it yourself. You can also attach it to back office yourself. No one stops you. And you can check how it feels to use components. When they will find their way to back office officially, then you can start to use them in production, and you can use them in your packages. And in that way, you can future-proof the packages, because UI library will also be the fundament of the next version of back office, the next front-end version of...
Yeah, not next major, but...
Yes,
yeah.
but
in the future,
in the back office,
the future
back office,
the
not Angular JS back office, the new back office that's gonna come eventually. So by that, you kind of future-proof your packages and make the migration way easier. So the other big question is, where can you find this UI library?
Yeah, and you can actually go view the latest released packages in Storybook online at UUI-umbraco.com. And we are very open for contribution and suggestions. So please also go to the repository. Also, if you want to build the bundle yourself or play with the setup. So feel free to go to the repository, bring any thoughts and ideas, because it's now that we need your input to ensure this becomes a success for all of us. Yeah, because this is still not in version 1. We're still in early development. So
this is now is the best time to actually create the API, the components with us. And exactly. So you can make sure there will be like you want them to be if you contribute and discuss and participate in this project.
Exactly.
So thank you. That's all from us. And yes, remember to like and subscribe. Or no, this is not that platform. This is not this joke is always funny. Okay, thank you, Niels Lyngsø.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.